Anybody got a point out of that, out of last week's sermon? Sorry? Yeah, that was definitely a catchphrase, not the point though. Knowledge what? Very much closer, yes. That's pretty close. Let me read you some things in the form. Actions have substance or meaning because we are made to be substantial as humans. How we interact with humans will show how good of a relationship we have with God. Our actions show others how legitimate God is. We should be a good example. Actions matter, but they are not the end-all, be-all as long as you follow and believe Christ. We should be thankful that Jesus quoted Psalm 22 before he died. It's crazy, in a good way, how relevant God makes things for people in their time of need, including Jesus, and how he does this by using patterns that everyone can relate to. Christ quoted Psalm 22 to show us who he really is, to give us hope. It's not how knowledgeable you are, it's what you do with that knowledge. Wisdom in its practical outworking has to be reconciled with wisdom as spiritual means, which is first and foremost. Just being aware that God is more powerful than we are is wisdom enough to provide our world with perspective. People who don't put in the effort of their relationship with God tend to leave the church. Our earthly fathers are supposed to teach us about who God is and also give us a context for hearing God properly. So those are a few things that were said in the threads. Any one of those to stand out as the main theme from last week? I know that these sermons in particular are like nuclear bombs in terms of their content. But did anybody discern something? Did anybody take the power that was generated and use it as something that can be plugged into? The one here that stands out to me as the accurate thesis statement is, let's see, just being aware that God is more powerful than we are is wisdom enough to provide our world perspective. What was said last week, I'll read you the specific statement, is there is simple beauty in understanding that you are powerless, that everything has a place and a time, and that we should respect God because of that. So that is what was talked about last week, that everything has a place and a time, and that God is bigger than us, and because he's bigger than us, that means that we can find beauty and freedom and truth and love in the fact that he's bigger than us. This week, we're not going to be talking about that. I want to talk a little bit about culture. What culture was Solomon involved in? Should be a really easy question. Gnosticism is a belief, not a culture. Thank you. Yes. Solomon was a Jew, and therefore he was involved in Jewish culture. And what is it that Jews, what was the premise of Jewish culture? I know that sounds really daunting as a question, but it's a question that I'm absolutely sure that the elders have prepared you to answer. What is Jewish culture predicated upon? On what? Relish? What? Tradition. And somebody else said something. Sacrifice. Very good. Now let's put that in other terms. Are we talking about sacrifice in terms of carrying the load for somebody? You know, like sacrifice? What are we talking about when we say sacrifice? Blood sacrifice. Meaning what? What does blood sacrifice do? Cleanses us from sin. So, breaking it down to like its like root parts. Jewish culture is predicated upon the practice of blood sacrifice in order to what? Cleanse us from our sin. Okay? Everything that Jewish culture is about is about what to do? That's a question. Is Jewish culture about what you should do? It's about what you shouldn't do, right? And so the culture that forms around this idea of what you shouldn't do is a culture of shame and guilt. Because, is anybody perfect? No. Nobody's perfect. And because nobody's perfect, everybody living in a culture where there are rules constantly, put down, cause people to have shame and guilt. So the Jewish culture, according to Scripture, is predicated upon trying to get out of feeling guilty.